This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Isn't it bullshit to have to question where your food comes from? At Vital Farms, you can trace your pasture-raised eggs all the way back to the source, the pasture. On the side of each pasture-raised carton of eggs, you'll find the name of the farm where your eggs were laid. And when you look the farm up on their website, you'll get a peek at all the sunshine, fresh air, and open space the hens enjoy. Learn more and find out where to buy them at vitalfarms.com. Vital Farms, keeping it bullshit-free.
I'm Jason Palmer, one of the hosts of The Intelligence, The Economist's daily current affairs podcast. The Economist's award-winning shows make sense of what matters, from our special series on China's president to our weekly podcasts on business, technology, and American politics. Our journalists provide fair, in-depth reporting on the events shaping the world. Search for Economist Podcasts Plus and sign up to our free 1-month trial.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance, deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale, and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
It's time to say goodbye to hold music and say hello to fast customer support with Service Cloud. With trusted AI and data working together, you can skip long wait times and deliver efficient, personalized service right away, all while keeping support costs low and more customers happy. Reimagine your customer support with the #1 AI CRM for service. Learn what's possible at salesforce.com/products/service.
Reboot your credit card with Apple Card, the credit card created by Apple. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that you can now choose to grow in a high-yield savings account that's built right into the Wallet app. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone and start growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility requirements. Savings accounts provided by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Welcome to the podcast. In this podcast episode, I talk with Richard Medcalf about making time for strategy. Richard Medcalf, welcome to the conversation today.
Jonathan, hey, it's great to be here.
It is great to be with you. I believe we had a nice conversation a couple years ago. It's been a while. Great to have you back on. Great to continue the dialogue. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from Paris, just outside of Paris in France. So you can tell by my accent, I'm not born French, but I have adopted the country over the last 20 years.
Wonderful. And I love France. I love visiting any chance I get. It's been a while. I think the last time was pre-pandemic. But so I need to get back, but wonderful. And I know it's a Friday evening for you. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about Richard's book, Making Time for Strategy. And as we get started, I wanted to share Richard's bio with everybody. Richard Medcalf describes himself as what you get if you were to put McKinsey consultant, a slightly unorthodox pastor, and an entrepreneur into a blender. I love that. He is the founder of X Quadrant and a trusted advisor to exceptional CEOs and entrepreneurs and their leadership teams. Richard, anything you would like to highlight from your own background before we dive on in and talk about your book?
Just one thing, perhaps, which is really why I do what I do, which is really important to me. And it's probably become really more important than when we last spoke. Mm-hmm. I realize that what I'm really serious about is helping these top leaders that you just mentioned create extraordinary impact, make a positive difference in the world. And the reason for that is, you might be able to see it in the background here on the video, but my sister, Georgina, was mentally disabled. I had this high-flying career, and she needed 24-hour care. She couldn't speak, and she passed away relatively early in life. And so for me, that dichotomy has always been huge. I feel that if world's top business leaders don't change the world, then who will? And so I think when I wrote the book, it was one half of the equation. So what I'm all about is helping these leaders create bigger and more positive impact than they can possibly imagine. And what I find is there are two dimensions on this, Jonathan, one of which is being what I call being magnetic, which is like attracting people to us, having powerful conversations, resonating with purpose, being somebody who stands for something, who's on fire. And the other part is what I call being strategic, which is this exponential thinking, which is about putting our attention on the things that matter. And I think it's those two things together is the work that I do with CEOs and entrepreneurs and some of their team. And so the book really is focusing on that strategic part. But I want to just share the bigger context, because for me, it's not just about, hey, how do I just, carve a few more hours out of my day? It's actually important because it's about impact.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. A great way to frame up the start of this conversation. Impact is what it's all about. I think every leader wants to have impact, wants to maximize their influence and the ability to make a difference in their team, in their organization, and in the world. And we usually don't know how to do that. We're kind of running around like chickens with our heads cut off, just trying to put out fires and just keep things afloat. And, getting to bigger conversations around strategy and impact are the types of things that not every leader gets to. And so, if you want to increase your impact and really start to make a difference, one of the best things you can do is start to, prioritize your time in such a way that you can put the time in to spend on the strategy and the deep thinking and the things that need to happen in order for you to get to the point where you can have that impact.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Let's start by just, if you can share with us a little bit about kind of the origins of this book, why this book, why now, why focus on strategy, and the title of the book, Making Time for Strategy. Why that title?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reason for writing the book is that I realized that is a problem that all my clients have, and most every senior leader has this problem of time. I was talking with a chief executive just 2 days ago, and they were sharing with me the familiar story. Actually, I'm so caught up in the day-to-day. It always feels the whole organization is firefighting. I feel I'm operating one level below where I need to operate. It feels like my team is operating. Everybody is operating one level below where they need to be. And as a result, they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And they feel guilty about even giving more to their own teams because they know that they're all busy too. And where do I find the time to really work on those game-changing things that I know is going to make the difference? I've had so many of my clients, when they first start, have this issue. They're like, well, I want to go and make a bigger impact. I want to think in multiplication, not addition. But how can I go and do that next level stuff when I've got all this other stuff on my plate? And I realized that most people turn to productivity as the answer. They turn to, I just need to get more efficient and more productive. But the problem is that doesn't actually deal with what I call the infinity of things that come our way. Let's face it, we got infinite emails, infinite social media, conversations to have, infinite content, books, podcasts, blogs, streaming, whatever, you name it. It's all coming at us and we can't get through it. Every email we send, we get two back. Every Slack message we send, we create a whole conversation. So it never stops. And I think leaders, especially as they rise up and they get more and more responsibility and their sphere of influence expands, that even piles on even more. And so the techniques that used to work, perhaps for them, they probably don't work anyway in our current society, current age. But also, they're also at a bigger, more responsible role than ever before with a wider circle of influence. So that's why I wrote it, because I realized that the typical productivity tips weren't enough to break through.
Yeah, and the more success you find, the more that gets put on your plate. And people want to work with successful people, so the more people ask of you, and like all the things you said, it's just really hard if we just live in a world where we think, okay, I can just like squeeze more productivity out of this limited well, doing these tricks, that just doesn't work. And so I'm really excited to hear more about how you approach the strategy piece, given this reality that so many people find themselves in as they're going through their day-to-day.
Yeah. So when we have what I call the infinity trap, because it's a trap because we try to work faster and faster to get through it all. And we actually get more and more tunnel vision. We feel it's focused, but actually we're not seeing the opportunities. We're being productive perhaps, but not creative. And we're therefore finding those breakthrough moments. So within our own little frame of reference, we're adding value, we're kind of making things happen, we're making progress, but it's actually very incremental because of this tunnel vision, and that's the infinity trap. And so what's the solution? The solution fundamentally is we do have to create time, to do that. But how do we do that, right? Because it feels almost impossible at some points, like it just can't make it happen. Well, you asked about the title of the book and why it's making time for strategy. So when I talk about strategy, first of all, I don't necessarily mean corporate strategy. If you're a CEO or entrepreneur, as many of my clients are, that will be part of it. But for me, it's really the strategic, right? Which means the thing that's going to move the needle for you, the thing that's going to make the difference. It's the filter, making time for the thing that really matters. And time is an acronym. In fact, I was super happy when I actually realized that my approach fitted into the letter time. But there are 4 things that spell the word time that you need to address. And the issue is that if you address the wrong one, you don't remove the barrier. So if you work on productivity and that's not your big issue, or you work on your workflows and that's not the issue, then you're still going to be overwhelmed. So these 4 areas, and I've even got a diagnostic little quiz on the website I can tell you about, which actually helps you identify which of the 4 areas you need to work on, and you can literally just jump into the book right in that section and work on that. So I try to design the book to be a book for busy people, so that you don't have to read it from all the way through. You can just jump in and work on what you need to, or you can work it through systematically as well. So the 4 areas, there's the T is for tactics. Sometimes we do actually need better workflows. We do actually need a tactical plan to free up our time. Especially, I call it like a crash plan. Imagine that we are a business, right? Businesses, imagine you have a business that has 0 margin, 0 profitability. It's just stumbling along. Some months it makes a bit of money, some months it doesn't have quite enough money. It can't really invest in the future, that business. It can't really build a new plant, invest in marketing, catapult their future, right? They're kind of stuck until they get additional margin. They're a bit stuck and it's very fragile. Well, for most leaders, that's the same. We're like that business with our time. We've got no time to invest in future success. We're bumbling along, using up all our time on the day-to-day. So we do need a plan, which I go through in the book, to really say, okay, let's do an inventory of what your current commitments are, how strategic they are, and then it's build a fast-acting plan to rapidly free up some time and make a big difference. Because let's face it, if you're in that business owner who's not making any money, you probably need to cut deep. You probably need to make some big changes so that you're not just playing incrementally at the edges with a few minor savings. So tactics involves shifting, getting rid of things in our commitments, but then maintaining that and having some more sustainable workflows going forward.
Tactics, wonderful. And as I'm thinking about, and maybe this will come later, so if it does, just say, hey, just wait just a moment. But the tactics piece, it sounds like part of this is a boundaries kind of exercise, and understanding what your boundaries are. Like just yesterday, I was thinking of, there's this particular leader that I had been working with, and we've been going back and forth, and this project has really become a huge time suck. And I feel like I'm always being asked in an urgent way to respond to their procrastination, their lack of organization, then gets translated to urgency towards me. And we end up rehashing the same stuff over and over and over again, usually with long periods of nothing happening in between, and at some point I'm just like, you know what, it's not my core job. It's not really my responsibility. I'm trying to be a good team player. I'm trying to be helpful. But this is just not worth it to me or my team to continue to do this. And so I'm just going to have to set up a boundary. I'm happy to work with you. I'm happy to continue to try to collaborate in this way, but this just does not make sense. So, establishing a boundary, when you have that kind of a candid conversation, then either, you can say, okay, I guess we're done collaborating, or you can say, okay, well, let's revisit how we're actually going to do this in a healthy way, in an effective way, to actually make sure things are moving forward. We're not wasting people's time, etc. So part of it seems like perhaps a boundary conversation.
Yeah, I talk about boundaries actually quite a lot in the book, but that actually fits nicely into the second area, which is influence. So, as I said, the reason this is not just a productivity challenge is there are some tactical things, but it's also a leadership challenge. It's actually influencing your stakeholders, because I like to say, if you want to go on a diet, the sabotage is most likely to come from your family, because they're the one they want a chocolate cake and they don't want to feel bad about it, right? Where you virtuously saying no, so they're going to kind of tempt you, and unless you've really had that conversation up front and that's really established what I want to do, you can do it. You can have what you want. I'm not going to. It's fine. Don't feel guilty. You can have that conversation, and then when they say, "Okay, we'll support you in it," then you've got allies and not saboteurs. Too often what we do is we come up with a plan and we go, oh, I can't do that because my boss won't agree, or the other people in the company won't want me to do that, or my customers won't accept that. But have we actually had the conversations to renegotiate those boundaries, to create some new boundaries? And so influence is really important, because otherwise we can't implement our tactical plan. It will fall flat because we are trying to change, but nobody else knows they need to change. So in the influence part of the book, I talk about that. I actually think it's an overlooked area. When people do the assessment that I mentioned, the Making Time for Strategy assessment, and they get a score, they get their overall score, which they can benchmark. We've had hundreds and hundreds of leaders do it. But also you get to see which is your limiting factor. And I find that influence is, out of the 4 areas, it's the fewest number of people think influence is their limiting factor.
Interesting.
And I suspect that that's not actually the case. I suspect that people underestimate how much that is actually holding them back. Because at the end of the day, if you can get your boss on your side, if you can renegotiate with your stakeholders, your customers, your peers, your team, and create a new agreement, that makes a huge amount of difference. But often we don't do it. We don't have those conversations. We don't have the bold conversations. We don't express our needs clearly. We don't explain why it's going to be better. So I think influence is
right. It's uncomfortable. That's it's a nerve-wracking conversation, because people want to please people. You want to be seen as successful, and you want to be a team player, etc. So it can really be a challenge to be willing to have those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the influence part. And then the flip side, if we then move on to the next one, is mindset. So often it's what we believe is possible, necessary, and desirable that holds us back in this area. So it's not just a leadership challenge, it's also a personal transformation challenge, because we just might feel that we have to be busy to be valuable, to be productive. We might feel that if we're not hyper responsive, then that's a bad thing. I like to say, well, imagine you try to get in touch with the president of the USA or your company's CEO or whatever. It's like, well, perhaps they wouldn't be responding in 5 minutes, and perhaps you'd be actually quite happy that they've got better things to do. They're an important person. So what if you're an important person, you have important things to do, and you're not getting distracted? So trying to hack people's thinking and help them realize that perhaps their addiction to instant responsiveness, or addiction to adding value, or need to people please, or all these things, perhaps we need to let those go. And find a different way of thinking about things. So I like to say we want to prioritize contribution instead of being governed by our fears, which often happens. So that's mindset.
And that's interesting to me personally, because I tend to be one of those people. I'm not sure if it's a style thing. I don't feel like a huge amount of pressure personally to like be the hyper responsive person, but I am. And, you know, I always feel really bad if I'm like, I was a little bit late for this conversation. I felt horrible about that. I hate wasting people's time. And if someone contacts me, you know, I want to be on top of things enough to be able to respond to them quickly. And, you know, again, I don't feel like a huge amount of like weight or pressure, and I don't feel like I'm like burning myself out to do it, but I do tend to kind of be that hyper responsive person, and it probably impacts me in ways that I'm not even aware of. And it probably diminishes my energy in ways that I'm not aware of as well.
Well, the question, I think the challenge is really, what are you missing out on? So what would happen if you created more space in your life, more space to think and reflect? We've jumped into the tactics, but I suppose I want to just go back up one level. What are we trying to create here? I call it strategic time. And it's time to think about and work on the game-changing projects, or the things you need to shift. And the issue is, so often we don't create that time. We don't have that creativity. And so we just take the hard path. It feels like it's just the direct path, but it's the hard path. It's where we're just trying to add the effort in. And so when we are hyper responsive, it's fine. But then that means that probably our day is taken up by noise. We don't have just time to reflect. When I run a CEO group of some of the world's most amazing leaders, so from billion-dollar companies to startup founders to different sorts of leaders. And we go away for a couple of days. Next time we're going to Iceland in a couple of months. We're in Paris 4 months before. And just those 2 days out of their business, where they get just a step back and think, it's such a game changer for them.
Yeah.
And it's we don't often give ourselves that gift. And I like to say that it's really important to know what you need to be working on, because you can't free up time from operations. You have to free up time for something more valuable. Otherwise, it just crowds back in. So it's really important to spend some time getting clear about, what do I want to spend my time doing? What would make a big difference? So that's mindset. And you can see that we're always limited by our own thinking about things. The final one is the environment. Environment is the E in time. And environment, but what I mean by that is really your company culture. So there are some tactical things about our own personal environment that we can deal with, such as minimizing notifications and these kind of things. But it's also the question about, well, how do I create an environment around me where we are promoting strategic time, where we are having a culture where it's okay to stop and think and close the door and reflect, and not just feel that we have to be in production mode all the time, but also be in creativity mode. That's often a really big challenge for leaders, because it's not just about their own personal productivity. If they can sort that out and the rest of the organization is completely overwhelmed, well, then what? So the time part is really helping them think about, how do I create that language, create that discussion, that conversation within the broader company, and how can we put into place some behaviors and some rituals that promote that? So that, if you like, is the kind of the overall, the big picture.
Yeah. Excellent.
And I think that's why I think the book came out of the work I've been doing with leaders on these areas. I realized I'm getting results for these people. That, did a group program. There was a mid-level manager. He got promotion. He was overloaded. He created 30% of his week. He realized he was able to delegate and get rid of. He had all this free time. Went to his manager and he rose up a level, because it's like, oh great, well, you can take this responsibility now. You can take that responsibility. Same with CEO clients, where they finally managed to drive their next initiative. So I found it was so powerful. And it was when I realized it's this more of this coaching approach around dealing with the leadership issues, dealing with the personal mindset issues, dealing with the kind of organizational dynamics issues. It's those things that make the difference, and not just adding a new filter to your Gmail or a better to-do list application.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, this has just been a great conversation. I really appreciate you walking us through the TIME acronym and some of these kind of tools and approaches that we can use to free up the time so that we can, focus on the strategic pieces, have those reflective moments, and get unplugged a little bit, at least, so that we're not just running around putting out fires like chickens with our heads cut off all day, but actually getting to the second level kinds of work that we all want to do. I think we all are hoping to be able to do that kind of stuff. I note the time, I need to let you go, but before we wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, my name is Richard Medcalf with a D and no E. There's various ways of spelling Medcalf, and my company is called X Quadrant. So it's just the X and then the word quadrant. And if you want to find a bit more, first of all, find me on LinkedIn, hit me up. I'm always putting interesting and valuable things out there. Go to makingtimeforstrategy.com if you want to find out about the book. There's the links to Amazon and all the other things there, as well as some reviews and all the other stuff you might want to find out about. And actually what I'll do is I'll set up a special link. If you go to xquadrant.com/HCI, then I'll actually put the link to the Making Time for Strategy assessment there and some other bonuses as well. So that's probably the best place to go to get everything in one place. So xquadrant.com/HCI. And and if anybody gets the book and finds it interesting, feel free to reach out and strike up a conversation. I'm always very happy to engage with people and have that two-way dialogue. It's fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. Again, a real pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out and get connected. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day, and that you can have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.